samples, you take those clusters alone. Okay, but that's not a good approach. I mentioned that also. It is not a good approach that you leave the outliers. The second one, okay, second one is a very logical approach. Every data point, you calculate the variance to the outliers that you have. Okay, you calculate the variance of every data point to the outlier you have. Not only to the outlier, to all the points. Okay, when you do it to all the points and map the variance on a graph, when you map the variance on a graph to every data point, you will be finding that a pattern of regular plotting happens. Okay, and when the variance is more, you find the outlier, there will be a huge gap on the variance. Okay, what I have done is, I have 100 data points. Okay, I have variance calculated for these 100 data points. Okay, 99 points to the 1 point which is there, every point. Okay, so I have lot of variance values which I am getting calculated. I keep plotting this graph of variance. Okay, now if I am on a regular increase, okay, and the maximum value is here, okay, which means the variance of the outlier is not much. I must try to accommodate the outliers into one of my clusters. Okay, now if I have a variance like this for 1 point, suddenly I get a variance like this, then I have a huge gap in my variance, which means it's seriously an outlier which has to be treated as a separate cluster, which has to go out as a separate cluster. I hope it's clear. Yes? So one approach is you leave the outliers, please don't do it. Okay? Second approach is you calculate the variance of that to every data point, plot the variance graph. When you get a huge gap on the variance, you understand it has to go as a separate cluster. It shouldn't be left, those has to get into a separate cluster. Okay? Now these are the regular methods. I think this variance, if you look in for searching in the net or in the literature, you will find the split and merge methods. Okay, it will be written as split and merge. Okay. Now there is one more algorithm which can be used to handle this noise. Okay, a very beautiful variation of k-means which is called as k-medoids. Okay, k-medoids algorithm. It's very simple. Statistically, your median is what is called here as medoids. I hope everybody knows median. In a single dimensional data, if the data is ordered, okay, the central value is your median, right? Now that median is not a term that we will use here because it is not a single dimensional data, we have a multi-dimensional data. So the median is termed here as medoid. We talk to it as a medoid. Okay. Now this medoid will basically help you handle this noise and outlier. Okay. How does it basically help you to handle? Now if I have a set of values, for example, I am taking only a single dimensional data here for us to understand it better. Okay. If I am going to do a mean of it, I hope everybody will know how to do the mean. You get a value. Okay. If I do a median, what will be the value of the median? It will be 2. What will be the value of mean? Is it 2? It will be some higher value which is not in the data set itself. That's another problem with the mean. Mean does not belong to data set many times. The mean becomes a generic value which is out of my data set. Okay, so I have a median. So this k-medoids, what does it do is, it tries to find the value which is closer to this mean. Okay, and the restriction is that has to be there in the data set. The value is part of the data set. It increases the quality of the cluster because it is part of the data set. Say, I have a data.
Yeah, I got that.
Okay.
It calculates the mean. After that, how?
So for k-means it is actually calculating your mean.
Yes.
Okay. And to the mean value you try to cluster.
Yes.
Okay. When you talk about the medoid, okay, when you have a medoid value, it tries to clusters to the medoid value which is there in the data set itself. So the cluster doesn't move elsewhere. The cluster is in the same part where the data point is available. If you can visualize it, for the 1, 2 and 10, for example, I take it as 10, what's the mean value? 13 divided by 3? 4 point something, okay? So I have the mean value in somewhere around 4 point. When I take it as a median, where is my cluster? 2. It is in 2. Do you see the distance between the cluster where it tries to form? It's on the original part of the cluster. So that's how K-medoids is able to handle that outlier. It stays inside my data itself. It doesn't go out. Here it goes out. In K-means it goes out.
Yes.
I hope it's clear. Yes. The problem is still I have to give an input of K. How do I overcome that particular K? Okay. So this is one clustering algorithm called hierarchical clustering, which does not require the input of number of clusters. If I don't know the behavior, I don't know the data set, okay, I can go in for a hierarchical clustering where I need not specify the number of clusters. Okay. Now this hierarchical clustering, basically there are two types. Okay. One is called as agglomerative clustering, the other one is called as divisive clustering. Okay. Agglomerative clustering is you find small clusters, okay, based on the similarity and based on the dissimilarity, you try to club those clusters together. That is agglomerative. Divisive is you have a huge cluster, you find the most dissimilarity between them, split it. You keep dividing. That's why we call it as a divisive method. Okay. Now, in this particular hierarchical clustering, only new thing that we would be doing is we have to find the distance between the clusters. In K-means and all, we don't find the distance between the clusters. We only find the distance between the data points and try to keep them in a cluster. Now in hierarchical clustering, we are supposed to find the distance between the clusters. Okay, for example, if I say I am going to denote D as my distance between two clusters. Okay, I am going to say A and B are my two clusters. Okay, and I am going to say it's going to be D. Let me say D is as of now a Euclidean distance. You can take any distance you want. Okay, D is x comma y. Okay, and it has to be greater than 0. This x point belongs to A cluster, y point belongs to B cluster. This x and y are my data points in the cluster A and B. Okay, I have a cluster A, I have a cluster B. Should I merge these two clusters is what I am trying to find out. That is what I am calculating through D. Okay, I have a data point x here, I have a data point y here. Okay, if it is going, I am finding the distance. Okay, if it is going to be greater than 0, okay, I have a relation there. Now this 0 is my value which I have to specify to merge the clusters. Is it okay? Yes? I'll repeat it. Hierarchical clustering, we need not specify the number of clusters. It's going to do a clustering, okay, without the number of clusters. So it's going to learn automatically on how the clustering of values are going to happen. But after doing it, the approach is going to actually club the clusters. It's going to put it together. How does it collate these clusters together? It has to find the distance between two clusters now. Distance between two clusters is basically a cluster A and a cluster B, a point in cluster A, a point in cluster B. If it is of this distance, it means they are similar and I club it together. Okay, this is how I am going to club my clusters in hierarchical clustering. But there is one issue, okay, this D what has been developed for hierarchical clustering, the distance between two clusters is not taken as a mathematical metric. Okay, the reason being, if my x and y happen to be the same, if my x and y happen to be the same data point, they will actually have the origin from two different clusters, which is not possible. Yes, if I am going to have x and y as same, okay, they cannot belong to two different clusters. Data point 1 I am taking as x in A cluster, data point 2 I am taking as x in B cluster. Okay, if I am making a distance metric for it, it's going to fail. So I can't go for this. But to prove it, okay, we have two divisions. One is called as single linkage clustering and complete linkage clustering. Okay, so if I have minimum dissimilarity among the clusters, okay, I call it as single linkage clustering. Minimum dissimilarity. Minimum dissimilarity means this is my minimum dissimilarity. This line what I am drawing here is your minimum dissimilarity between these two clusters. If this two is okay, I put it together. This is called single linkage. Okay, I can do a maximum dissimilarity. Maximum dissimilarity. This is called as complete linkage. So this is more of my positive outputs. This is more of I am trying to accommodate negative outputs. I'll repeat it once again. In hierarchical clustering, we are trying to cluster two clusters together. Okay, where the minimum dissimilarity, okay, is called as my single linkage clustering. Minimum dissimilarity is actually maximum similarity. Yes, minimum dissimilarity is maximum similarity. Single linkage will look for maximum similarity. Okay, and the other one which is called as complete linkage, where I want to accommodate, where I want to take all the clusters together. Okay, I can go in for the negative outputs also by taking the maximum dissimilarity in the two clusters. Okay, it is purely dependent on what type of data we have, what is the output that we require, what type of output am I looking forward for. Okay, now if I have a satellite image data, I have a 512 by 512 image, I do a lot of pre-processing, image related work has happened, I try to give it to my single linkage algorithm. It's going to utterly fail, because it's going to cluster similarity, all my pixel values are going to be almost the same in a satellite image, it's going to fail thoroughly. There I should not use a single linkage clustering rather than complete linkage also. In such places my hierarchical clustering cannot work, because it is more purely dependent on the similarity and dissimilarity measure of the features that are available on my data. So in such cases, hierarchical should not be used. I hope it's clear. Yes? Next. So as I told you, you have single, you have complete, and the next one you have a average linkage. Yes?
How is that calculated? In case of difference between the two means is fine. Is it the last value?
Last value on the data point. The maximum value on the data point. See, actually if you have a cluster, when you cluster, you find the diameter of the cluster. Right? The maximum diameter that you have, a point which is lying on the diameter will be a final threshold on which you will find the similarity or a dissimilarity. The next one. So the weakness, as I told you, one thing is the computation is huge. Okay, so the order of the algorithm on computation is very high. Okay, and once I cluster on hierarchy, I will not be able to further redo it. I cannot come out of it. In k-means and all, I can go to the previous iteration. It's possible to go back to my previous iteration. In hierarchical, it is not possible. Okay. The next one. Now, if in case your data set is not figuring out, or you want to surely understand how you have to find or give an input to the number of clusters, a very beautiful paper which is written by Glenn and Martha is available in the Springer, which is an open access. You can go through based on the behavior of data. How do you term or define the number of clusters? Okay, if you don't want to go into any of these algorithms, you want to use k-means only. Version of k only is fine with you. You can go in with a clustering based on one of the. There are a lot of values that are to be taken from the data set. A lot of statistics to be performed, based on which you can train down to the value of k. That is also possible. You need not go and look for hierarchical clustering. You can look for k itself. Okay. The next one. The next one is actually your density based clustering. Okay. Now since my hierarchical is computationally very expensive, okay, so I would like to introduce, or I would like to recommend density based clustering, where again you need not specify k. Okay, k is not a matter of input for density based clustering. Okay. Now what are the things that it can do? It can handle noise data, it can handle outliers, it will be able to give you arbitrary shapes. Non-convex shapes will also be covered through density-based clustering, which was not covered through your K-means. Okay, hierarchical will also fail if you have a non-convex shape in your cluster. Okay, so if you have, or if you're positively your output, you want it as a non-convex shape output, you're sure you're going to have a non-convex output, you have to look forward for a density-based clustering. Okay, under density-based clustering, I would take the most common, very popular, and which handles beautifully non-convex data. There's an algorithm called dbScan. Okay, then it's actually, to be very already we have seen this as a single linkage algorithm. Your generalized single linkage algorithm is your dbScan. Okay, I would give the credit to the author. R.F. Ling was the person who brought this algorithm or quoted this algorithm in 1973. The original version of the algorithm was generalized single linkage hierarchical algorithm. Okay, which is now coined as dbScan. Okay, so in dbScan, two things that are taken as inputs. Okay, one is you have to take a radius r. Okay, wherever you find a wall of the ellipse which you are going to make, and the other one is called as epsilon, which is the minimum number of points which you have to specify. Okay, and with these two values, we would be able to find out three different characteristics of every data point. Okay, a data point may fall into either a border point, a core point, or a noise point. Okay, every data point we will be able to characteristically represent it as a border point, core point, or a data point. Okay, now this is my cluster. Every circle that you see here is a cluster. Okay, in my cluster, if you see a point which is inside, internal to the cluster, we call it as a core point. Okay, and this measurement that I have given here is supposed to be your radius r. Every cluster will have a radius r. Every cluster is pre-specified with a radius r, and I have a min point, the epsilon, where I say to say it as a cluster, I need these many points, minimum number of points. The density of one point staying in a cluster should be this. Now, for example, I say 4 is my min points. Every cluster should have minimum 4 points. Every new data point that I take should be supported with 3 more points in the same cluster. That is how I am going to do a density-based clustering. Okay. So what happens when I do it? When I have this cluster, a border point will actually be part of another cluster. Yes? So my problem of overlap of clusters can also be brought here. Usually in practical data, we will have lot of overlap of data points. Overlap of data points, if I have to explain practically, you go to Amazon, you buy a book. Okay, next time when you log in, do you see recommender systems giving you some recommendations there? Suggested readings, suggested books that you want to buy. Okay, first time I buy a psychology related book. Okay, second time when I log in, I buy a computer science related book. I am a data point for Amazon now. My data point, I belong to both psychology and to computer science. Practical? Yes. Next time when I log in, is he going to recommend me psychology or computer science? Both? What is the percentage? 50-50? Do you understand data point can be in 2 places? Yes, it is not necessarily, since it's a graph point, it should be only with one cluster, not necessarily. It can be in 2 places, right? So we need an algorithm which will handle this overlap. I am there in psychology, overlap with computer science, I am there in the intersection portion. I am a data point who is sitting there in the intersection portion. I must be able to clearly noticed as both. Whereas the earlier algorithms will have only clusters distinctively. Yes? So this algorithm would be able to find out the overlap of the cluster points which are available. Okay? The idea is basically with the help of identifying it as a border point or a core point. Core point is specific to only that cluster, border point can be part of another cluster. a point which does not belong to both these will be a noise point. Okay. So this is my DB scan. If you could see from the figure that I have an overlap of clusters and I keep moving. This movement is what I am talking about as single linkage. Okay, the linkage between the clusters. So to quickly go through the algorithm, I know it's very tough. I'm standing in between the lunch and the session. I'm going to finish in another 2-3 slides. So I request your concentration on the last part of the algorithm. Okay. So choose two values, r and epsilon. R is the radius, epsilon is the number of points that I need to stabilize on a cluster. Okay. AI, I'm going to calculate clusters now. AI is my cluster, which is an element of S. S is my entire set of data points. Okay. D, that is distance of a data point to X if it is less than or equal to epsilon. Okay. I'm going to take that as all into AI. Okay. I'm going to find out the cardinality of AI, the number of points which are sitting inside my cluster AI. If it is less than R, we shall not involve them here, which means that belong to another cluster. They are not part of my current cluster which I am calculating. Okay. And how do I start doing the overlap? Do union of AI, AJ if the intersection is not a empty set.